Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gerstenmaier, the controversial load and go procedure appears to expose NASA astronauts to unnecessary additional risk. In that vein, I've got three questions. Is load and go an additional launch risk? Question number one. Question number two, is load and go necessary because of performance challenges in getting to the International Space Station? And then question number three, if it's a cost-saving measure, is the added risk to astronauts appropriate to help save money?
So again, I think what we need to do, and we're still in the process of reviewing the exact procedure of where we put the propellant on versus when we have crew get in the vehicle. It's a function of the spacecraft design because you need to get the propellant in at the right time. The propellant needs to be at the right temperatures and pressures at the time of ignition of the engines, et cetera. So there's a balance of when that occurs. We're going to find the right time to put the crew on these vehicles that puts them in at the most or the safest opportune time for the particular spacecraft that we're designed. And so we're going through that process right now. And I think we need to be careful how we do that and when we pick the time. In the case of SpaceX, it's interesting. If we go with the standard procedure they've laid out for us today, then we'll get to see they're roughly flying sometimes 10 to 16 launches per year. We'll get to see the actual loading of that vehicle exactly like it's going to be when the crew is on board 16 times per year. We think that's a significant safety advantage to see that operation occur repetitively 16 times per year. If we required a unique loading operation just for our crew when they're there, then you get a one-time shot per year of how you load the vehicle with crew there, and that may actually be more risky for you than it is taking the more standard procedure. So that's kind of what our logic is behind this. We get a chance to see it multiple times to make sure that it is really reliable. The folks that are doing the loading, the software that does the loading, it gets exercised multiple times per year. That gives us experience with that software. It's up to date. It's a not unique, one-of-a-kind thing. So we need to be careful we don't drive the particular loading sequence for this particular design to a unique aspect that actually exposes us to more risk. And that's what the teams are doing now. They're going through that detailed discussion to figure out the right way to move forward with this with SpaceX.
Thank you, Mr. Gerstenmaier. Director Singer, Chairman couldn't say it, but I will. Roll Tide. Welcome to the Hill. As Marshall Space Flight Center's director, and congratulations, being from the Tennessee Valley, you've made us all proud. The Marshall Space Flight Center first director, Dr. Werner von Braun, began his tenure in 1960 with a vision of taking humanity to the moon. This year, as we celebrate NASA's 60th anniversary, we are once again embarking on a mission to the moon with the intent of proving the technologies that are needed for our next celestial achievement, taking humanity to Mars. As the Marshall Space Flight Center's 14th center director, what is your vision for Marshall, and what technical roles do you foresee as Marshall writes its future history?
Thank you so much for that question, and thank you for the nice recognition. I would say that from my vision as the Center Director at Marshall Space Flight Center, it's probably very similar to the vision that many center directors have. It's definitely to deliver on our commitments and our missions and making sure that the assignments that we do have, we're able to execute them and making sure that our infrastructure is in place to do that. I think also a key part of that is strengthening our workforce. We have a very strong workforce that I'm very proud of, but investment in our workforce and making sure they remain strong and making sure they have the adequate training and resources and our ability to hire a diverse workforce is going to be critical. And as we execute the new missions. Also, a third part of that is the criticality of our partners. I know that many of the things that we do today gives us increased flexibility, agility, and effectiveness. And I think the education of our workforce and working with our partners to make sure that we continue that partnership and our partnerships with other centers are very critical. So I see that as my top three themes. I've talked about our expertise that we have at Marshall Space Flight Center, our ability to develop and integrate large systems, our deep space transportation activities, ascent and descent, the significant ventures that we're having in advanced manufacturing, not only on SLS today, but on engine parts that we're seeing that we're flying, and the ability to build in space. Our ecosystems that we work on to help with life that not only has to happen on International Space Station, but going forward in deep space. A lot of that is what will be key contributors. So to me, that is what makes our future so bright and why I'm so excited about being at Marshall Space Flight Center, because I think we have an opportunity to not only work on traveling to and through space, I think we have an ability to work and living and working in space, as well as understanding our world with our science. So I look forward to a bright future, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity to be at NASA.
Thank you, Ms. Singer, and Mr. Chairman, yield back.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for those great questions. I just want to, I think this wraps us up. I don't really see any more Democrats here, and he was the last Republican, but I just want to thank each and every one of you. I'm proud of each one of your centers and the leadership that you've given us, and also Mr. Gerstenmaier, your leadership at where you are, and very proud to be to have you folks here telling us about our space program, because it's I've never felt more optimistic and more excited about what's